So here's fruit set, right? So now you can see the stamen, the stigma has browned. You can see the stigma right there in the center of the berry. The stigma has browned, and the stamen are starting to brown up. You can see the anthers pretty clearly here. The anthers are pretty brown, and now those little bits will start to fall off. So what happens after fruit set? We start removing leaves. This is, of course, after veraison. I don't know why they're removing so many leaves after veraison. It's a weird time to remove leaves. But after fruit set is generally between fruit set and lag phase, which is about a 3-week or 4-week period or so. About a 4-week period, we have to remove leaves. And we're doing this to tell you why we're removing leaves. A lot of times we will do this to open the canopy, open up the fruit zone, get more spray penetration in there, get more airflow through there, dry the fruit zone out, and help us combat disease. That's the main reason. But also by getting more light and heat onto those clusters, we can increase some secondary metabolites, flavors, aromas, phenolics, that sort of thing. We don't do this in every single region, right? So if you're farming in the San Joaquin Valley, that's very hot, very oppressively hot. And so there, they don't want to do this because they can get sunburn on their fruit. So they leave a lot of leaves actually in front of their fruit to manage the sun. But in cooler climates like here in New York State, Willamette Valley, Sonoma, you'll see this operation in almost every vineyard. Right. Then, of course, you have berry growth. And all berries look like this. All berries look green before they go through veraison. And this is the way berry growth looks. So it's 2 phases. So you have phase 1, or stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, this double sigmoidal curve. Here in stage 1, the berries just grow, grow, grow. It's just exponential growth. And then they lag out after about 50 days of growing. And this is stage 2, which we also call lag phase, which is when the berry reaches about 50% roughly of its final harvest weight. So a lot of us will go out at lag phase, and that's when we actually take cluster weights, and then we just double the cluster weight. Double up. And then that's how we get a yield estimate. That's how we kind of know roughly how much fruit we're going to be taking in. And this 50 days, so we do it 50 days after 50% flowering, is roughly when lag phase occurs. And that was kind of discovered by these folks here, Ted Castile and Patty Skinkis. This is something that Ted started doing years ago, and reckoned it worked, and reckoned he was getting lag phase. And then Patty sort of evaluated it scientifically, and indeed, that is what happens. It's about 50, usually in Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, 50 days after 50% flowering is when we get to 50% of our final yield, which is stage 2. And then right after stage 2/lag phase, that's the beginning of veraison. So that's right there. That's when berries will start to soften, change color, and sugar load. And then they will go through and gain the remaining 50% of their weight. Okay, so then we get to pre-bunch closure, right? So the berries are just starting to touch, and then they finally close up. Key operation here, again, is spraying. Again, it's our last chance to get sprays into the inside of that cluster. So we really try to hit that one as viticulturists. And then we get the bunch closure, all right? And that bunch closure, right when the berries touch, is essentially when veraison begins. So at veraison, the berries start to soften up and change color. And again, it's going to occur at different times. It'll be much earlier than the rest of the country in the San Joaquin Valley because it's so dang hot there. And then in Willamette Valley and the Finger Lakes, it occurs roughly at the same time. And why does the Finger Lakes catch up to the Willamette Valley? Because this place has a very short, hot growing season. It gets really hot really quick here, so it catches up. This is when, again, the berries start to change color, they soften, and they gain sugar really quickly. This is generally, for most important global grape growing regions, this is where our last sprays will go on, and we don't have to spray any further in the season. Here in the Northeast, you got to continue spraying because the disease pressure is so incredibly high. And mainly the reason people are spraying here after Verizon is just to keep leaves on the vines, because the leaves can get infected by fungus so severely that they'll just fall off. But fortunately on the West Coast, you don't have to do that because the rain goes away in the growing season. All right, so this is what Verizon looks like. Very, very beautiful, of course. The berries are softening up and gaining sugar. This is what it looks like. This is probably, this might be Chardonnay. I'm not really sure. This looks like some very overripe, overexposed fruit. Here, it probably tastes really delicious if you put it in your mouth. I would imagine, though, this fruit is not going to make super stellar wine, just given the look of it. What is a synonym for the stage 2 of berry growth? Is it berry growth, Verizon, ripening, or lag phase? Cool. So yeah, it's lag phase, right? So you have stage 1, which is just exponential growth, and then of the green berries, then it lags out at 50% of its final harvest weight, and then continues like, so lags, and then it, once you get to the start of a raison, the start of a raison is actually the beginning of stage 3, okay? That's critical to know, by the way, because there's something on the Cornell website that says that Verizon occurs during lag phase or at the end of stage 2. That's incorrect. That was just sort of an oversight in some sort of publication. But I mentioned this because a student came to me a year or two ago and said they were doing a quiz and they used some sort of Cornell publication to help them on the quiz, and they got the question wrong. Yeah, so just know that. So Verizon occurs at the very beginning of stage 3. Lag phase is stage 2.